We now bring you a conversation with Geetha Mohan Ram, a very long-standing devotee of Bhagwan Baba, who is in conversation with Mrs. Chetana. Over to Mrs. Chetana.
Sai Ram to all the listeners of Radio Sai Global Harmony. We have Mrs. Geetha Ram from Washington, D.C. She's in Puttaparthi right now. And she comes from a family which has been coming to Swami for last 4 generations, I think.
60 years now.
60 years now. And Geetha, you must tell our listeners about how you came to Swami. And I believe it was your great-grandfather who first came to Swami, Mr. Seshgiri Rao Garu.
Right.
And please tell us something more about it.
Seshgiri Rao Garu was my father's uncle.
Mm-hmm.
And in 1942-43, around that time, one of his daughters were married into a family in Anantapur.
I see.
And they heard about a young boy in Puttaparthi who was doing miraculous things and so on. So they were related to the Karnam family here.
Karnam
Subbamma's family here. So they came and saw him, and they were somehow wonderstruck by this young son.
So at the time of Swami's age must have been approximately 23 years?
No. Swami was only 16 or 17
yes.
in 1943.
Okay.
And they came and saw this young boy, and they were very moved by the way he sang, and he spoke to them. They were mostly ladies, and at that time Seshgiri Rao Garu had not yet come. So when Swami saw this young girl, one of my cousins, he said, "You bring your mother and your grandfather," Swami told her. And she was just 8 or 9 years old at that time. So when they went back, Swami had asked them to come for Navaratri, I think, for Dasara. So they insisted that this elderly man, Seshgiri Rao, who was still in service at that time, to come. And he was a little reluctant because he didn't know, who is this young boy, 16 years, why should we travel all the way to Puttaparthi and all that. But they somehow managed to bring him.
And also you come from a very orthodox
Brahmin family.
To accept something like this must have been really a very first step to take like that.
Absolutely. It was very difficult, especially for my grandfather. I think I'll call him grandfather, though he was my father's uncle. And because we were very close to him. So it was very hard for them because it was a young boy, and he didn't fall into any of the Brahmin quote unquote boundaries. Didn't know the Vedas, didn't know whatever they thought that a Brahmin should know. So he very reluctantly accompanied them because it was only women coming. So he felt he can't send his daughter and young grandchildren. So he came to the Patha Mandiram, the old mandir where Swami used to live. And he said that I will not come and see him. You can all go and see him, but I will stay in Karnam Subbamma's house.
Okay.
But it so happened that when he arrived, bhajan was going on. The evening, in those days, they used to just sing songs apparently. And he arrived, and Swami was sitting on that stone that he used to sit. And there were a few women singing songs. And as he entered the hall, he had a vision of Shiva when he looked at Swami.
Really?
And he was a great devotee of Shiva himself. So he kind of fainted. And actually Swami looked after him for 3 days in his room here in the old mandir. And the ladies who had accompanied him, his daughter and grandchildren were all very worried. But Swami said, no, it's okay, he'll be all right. And for 3 days, Swami would just feed him water, and he tell them that he's okay. And then after the 3rd day, he came out of that sort of unconscious kind of state that he was in, and he told his family what he had seen. He used to work for the PWD at that time. And he told his family that, all my life I've worshipped Lord Shiva, and I came here and I saw it in this young boy. There is no need for me to go back and use these eyes for worldly purposes. So he resigned his job and stayed in Puttaparthi ever since, till 1967 or 68, till he passed away from 1942 onwards, and became Swami's personal attendant, looked after him. He would take care of him with a great deal of love. Even I, as a young child, would remember him, ironing Swami's clothes and just generally looking after him. So he stayed on. And because he was there, my father, who was a 20-year-old at that time, 1943.
Your father is a doctor, Mr. Padmanabhan.
Yes, he's a dental surgeon. Many people might recognize him as the person who walks behind Swami in Vrindavan. Yes. So he came. I mean, all the cousins and aunts and all said, why don't you come again, the following year in 1943, why don't you come to Puttaparthi? So my father apparently jokingly said, the uncle went and never came back.
Okay. So you're going to go now. What would happen?
What would happen to me? But they all said, no, we need a male person to come with us. It's so, in those days, the journey to Puttaparthi was hard. Mm-hmm. They had to cross the Chitravati and all that. Mm-hmm. So they brought him along. And as soon as they arrived, my father was just 21. Mm-hmm. Swami called him into the room and said, 2 weeks ago in Bangalore, I've seen the girl that you're going to marry. Mm-hmm. So when you get married, you bring her here.
So that was the first visit of your father?
That was the first visit. Mm-hmm. And my father says it was a very spiritual kind of experience for him, because when he entered the room to talk to Swami, mm-hmm. he says he could just felt out of the world kind of thing. There was something very divine about this young boy. Mm-hmm. And he just felt very drawn to the fact that he was saying so many good things. And I think for my father, Swami's idea of service is the one that has really been very dear to his heart ever mm-hmm. since. But anyway, he told Swami that, I have no plans to marry. I've just passed dental school. Mm-hmm. I have no money to start. In those days, India was still under British rule. So they couldn't get dental equipment. Mm-hmm. So I said, I have no money to import equipment. So Swami said, no, don't worry. You get married and come. You have your plans, but I have my plans for you. Mm-hmm. So he went back to Bangalore, and an alliance came, and it so happened to be from my mother's side. Mm-hmm. She was just 15 at that time. And as Swami had said, 2 weeks before that, she had seen Swami in Chamrajpet in Bangalore. Mm-hmm. Along with an aunt, she had gone there. Somebody had again said, that Swami cures people and all that. And her aunt used to get epileptic fits.
I see.
So they said, if you go to this boy, he'll cure you and all. So they just went out of curiosity. Mm-hmm. And my mother was sitting at the back of the room, and Swami called her. And apparently Swami, in those days used to go in a trance. So he was in a trance. And my mother thought he was sleeping. So she said, how long to sit
and also that used to happen most often, I believe.
Very often. Very often. My mother and my father say that sometimes it was be the most difficult thing, because he used to come and stay with my parents many times in mm-hmm. Bangalore, in later days. And he would go away in a trance, and they would all be so worried for him. Mm-hmm. But the first time my mother saw him, he was in a trance. And my mother thought he was sleeping. So mm-hmm. she kept saying, how long are we going to sit in front of the sleeping boy? Mm-hmm. Because my mother is very close to age and Swami also, to Swami. So, but finally he came out of the trance. And as soon as he came out, he called my mother. She was just 15. Mm-hmm. And he said, in 2 weeks' time, I'll see the boy that you're going to marry. Okay. You get married to him. He's a dental surgeon. Then you come to Puttaparthi. So my mother was very upset. She was still studying in school. Mm-hmm. And she said, no, I don't want to marry. He said, no, you will get married. Mm-hmm. You come. So anyway, this whole thing happened, and they sort of met up, and it happened. And I think it kind of sort of really made my father understand Swami's divinity. And ever since then, in 1944, they got married and came to Swami. Ever since then, they've always
been here
serving Swami.
So basically you're born into his fold.
Yeah, I was born into his fold. So I was so fortunate. No questions, no books to read. As children, I have an older brother mm-hmm. who Swami has named him also, named me. And we were just told, this is God, we believe in him. And that was it,
Then how did your other relatives, as Orthodox people, as they're always?
Yeah, I mean,
react to this, your coming to Swami and settling down here. Did you have any interaction later, or you still continue to believe it in as a family as a whole? I
think we were very fortunate. All of my father's side of the family, because they were the first few people who came. Mm-hmm. My uncle Sheshagiri Rao, who first came, he was mm-hmm. very respected by everyone in the family. Mm-hmm. They knew that he wasn't somebody who would take to something lightly. Mm-hmm. And they would all come to see him, and then they would see Swami's love and divinity and his teachings, and they all accepted Swami, especially my father's side. Mm-hmm. So there were about 8 or 10 old families who kind of stuck together. Mm-hmm. I think the extended family who at that time mm-hmm. didn't believe in Swami, they had a hard time with them. Mm-hmm. They would all make all sorts of remarks and so on. But they said, no, I mean, we believe
convinced.
in him. They were convinced. I think it was Swami's will, because in those days there were no books or videos or anything. Mm-hmm. It was just Swami's will. They were convinced and that was it. And of course, they were all very fortunate to see wonderful miracles.
Yes.
Each of them have...
Geeta, would you like to narrate to us some of those experiences that your family members and personally you yourself, I heard you had a lot of experiences. Would you please tell our listeners around the world?
Sure, I'd be glad to. I mean, in the old days, in the 40s, these people would come the hard way to Puttaparthi, but they experienced so much love from Swami, and they would all go to Chitravati. And of course, we've read in many, many books now how Swami would take them to the Kalpavruksha and all that. So family members had very wonderful, miraculous happenings that happened to them. The fact that Swami would know what's going on in Bangalore with them and would tell them when they came here, things like that. So
they basically were at, they came to Swami at the time when he said there are different stages. In his. So
yes.
The miracle part was the part where you got introduced to him. Okay.
So if you listen to some of the old family members, and sometimes we do that even now, when we get together, we have like a 24-hour session, everybody has got hundreds of miracles to narrate. So they, as you said, came at the time when Swami's whole phase was a Leela phase.
Yes.
So they saw. But for me personally, I, of course, saw him materialize things. And I remember when he used to come and stay in our house, as children, he would ask us what we would want. And we would actually take the liberty to say Cadbury's chocolate or peppermint or whatever. Things like that we saw. But we took it for granted because he did it so beautifully and easily that you never felt it was something, that was happening. Yeah, because, you would know that too, how it's so easily done that you don't think of it. But when I was about 8 years old, my aunt lived here in Puttaparthi, an elderly lady, and she needed eye surgery. And Swami actually asked her to go to Bangalore. Her name was Sakama. We used to call her Sakama.
This is not the coffee Sakama.
No, not the coffee Sakama. Okay. Her name was actually Savitramma.
Okay.
Everybody used to, I think, call her Sakama. And her husband used to, I think, be the priest in the temple or some such thing. Elderly, she was widowed and very devoted to Swami. She had seen Swami when Swami was a 6-year-old boy. And she had become he would come to her house and have lunch sometimes and so on. So Swami had told her to go to Bangalore to have a cataract surgery done. And, in those days it was hard to get to Bangalore and all that. So she came and stayed with my father because he was a dental surgeon, knew the doctors. And they took her to the doctors. The doctor said she needed surgery. But the elderly lady just refused. She said, these doctors are going to ruin my eyes. Okay. All I need is Swami's Vibhuti and Pada Namaskaram.
She's frightened of the doctors.
Yeah, she's frightened. Illiterate lady. Okay. But a lot of faith in Swami. So my father told her that we can't go back to Puttaparthi to get some more Vibhuti, some more Pada Namaskaram. He has already sent you himself to get the surgery done. You can't, and she was elderly, you can't make the hard trip. You should go through the surgery. So one evening, after a lot of argument, my parents had gone out somewhere. She and I were sitting on her sofa and she was complaining to me about my dad, saying that, these younger people, they don't listen to the elder people. They should have taken me back to Parthi and all that. And then as she was complaining, the phone rang and I picked up the phone and it was a trunk call from Bukkapatnam.
Okay. This is from Bukkapatnam to Bangalore.
Bukkapatnam to Bangalore.
Okay.
I pick up the phone and of course I recognize Swami's voice and very sweetly Swami is saying, Geeta Ma? He's asking, questioning me, is this Geeta? I say yes. So he says, is that old lady complaining? So I say, I didn't say yes. You don't say yes to Swami if he asks if someone's complaining. So he said, put her on the phone. And she started to tell him, I need surgery, but I can't do it till I come and get your Padnamskar. But Padmanabh is not bringing me and all that. So I think he told her, don't worry, go through it, go through the surgery and all that. And then he asked her to give me the phone again.
Okay.
So she gives me the phone and he says, do you see a piece of paper anywhere around you? So I said, yes, there's a newspaper here. So he says, you put the phone down on the newspaper. I put the phone down. You can imagine I'm 8 years old and through the phone comes a huge mound of vibhuti.
Amazing.
Even now just telling you that scene flashes in front of my eyes. And I was just so shocked. Even as an 8-year-old, I knew that the telephone is not used for this. Yes. And here comes Vibhuti.
We've heard of Vibhuti coming out of pictures and
Swami's
idols and all that. But this is amazing. I think her will to see Swami and seek his blessings for the operation, whatever, was so strong in her.
Yeah, so intense. That's what I say, that her devotion was so strong that it could bring him, from Puttaparthi to Bangalore through that telephone.
Yes.
And the Vibhuti came, and then I picked up the phone after it stopped, and very sweetly Swami in Telugu says, "Vachinda?" He says, "Did you get it?" So I said, "Yes." He said, "You give it to the old lady. Let her have surgery. You tell Padmanabh and Kamalamma that I had called," he said, and that was the end. So that was my
very first exposure to, first-hand exposure.
Exposure to something so awesome, apart from, metalizations and all that. And it started to make me think, that Swami is not just somebody who gives you chocolates and this and that. He's something far more, who can answer to an old lady's prayer. From 100 miles, that started to work in my head. And I think I started to see Swami very differently after that, in some ways.
Really amazing.
Yeah, really amazing.
We've heard a lot of miracles, but this is something unique.
Yeah, it is. I was really fortunate, and it somehow really moved me that this lady, she wasn't anybody important. And she's just a very ordinary lady, the wife of some priest, and hadn't much education, but her intense devotion could make him respond to her, So.
And also, Geeta, about this, I'm taking you a little away from the topic. We generally talk about miracles of Swami and quote unquote, wow, this is what happened and this is something amazing, and we're all surprised. If you and I were to perform any miracle, that I think the world should be surprised. But if he is doing it, I think we should call it something more than a miracle, which is something which conveys more than a miracle, but which is something natural for him.
Which is very natural
for him to do. And there is no element of surprise there, I think. Very often I get surprised and then I just tell myself, no. If I were to do, I should be really surprised. If he is doing it, Almighty God, I think it's very natural for him.
Absolutely.
We forget this most often. The Creator can create anything.
Right.
It's all in it.
Yes.
Immanent. So I feel there's no element of surprise there.
And that's true. I think like you say, you're taken by surprise and then you sort of start introspecting. And then you say that what's the surprise? He's divine.
Yes.
His divinity has come down for us. What's the surprise? So there must be more to it. There must be a reason for him to do it.
And our understanding also should be, we should grow it.
With it.
And so from subjective to objective.
Absolutely. Because along with it comes so many wonderful teachings. I remember some years ago when we came from the US, my sons, I have twin sons, Arun and Varun.
Okay.
Swami has named them. And we were in the interview room and they were just 9 or 10 years old. And they were so thrilled to see, the school boys, students sitting close to Swami and talking and all that. So when Swami was in the interview room, he said, "What do you boys want?" And they said, "Swami, we are so far away. We want to be near you, And Swami very sweetly explained to them, what is far? How do you spell far? F-A-R. He said, if you call me with devotion, he said, pointing to himself, Father always ready.
Wonderful.
He said, Father is always ready to come to you. It doesn't matter where you are. But he said, you may be near, but if you don't practice any of the teachings, near, how do you spell near? N-E-A-R. It could be never enlightened, always repeating.
Wonderful.
Always repeating your mistakes. So it doesn't matter if you're near or far. It's a concept of the mind,
How you understand.
How you understand and
we evolve.
And how you practice what he says, Otherwise, it will just remain as miracles that are wonderful, but never put into practice in our own.
And one gets stagnant.
Yes.
After a certain point. And you fall apart if you don't see that anymore happening.
Absolutely.
So where do we reach is the question, and where should we be?
Yeah, really. Living in the US, you see so many wonderful devotees who even have not seen Swami and never had the good fortune that I had, or you had for that matter, to experience him in the physical form.
Yes.
But still are so devoted and do so much service all over. One very strange thing that happened to me some years ago, somebody asked me a question in one of the retreats. You're so fortunate you saw Swami for so long when you were young and all that. And it kind of made me think, what about all the people who never saw Swami, who were not born in the family like I was? What happens to them,
Yes.
How does Swami respond to them? How does Swami make an impact on their lives? And I was thinking about it, and 3 weeks later, Swami gave me an answer in a very beautiful way. I had gone to New York for a Broadway show, actually.
Oh, finally you got the tickets.
I got the tickets. And it happened to be our anniversary. Swami got us married in Whitefield. So we tried to make it here, but it's always hard in December. So we went to the Flushing Temple in New York, and then we went to the show. And I went to the ladies' room during the interval. And there was a Hispanic lady, cleaning. And she looked at me and sort of kept looking at me, and I was a little uncomfortable, actually. Then she looked at me and said, "You Indian? Are you Indian?" So I said, "Yes, I am Indian." Then she paused, hesitated, and then she said, "No Sai Baba?" She asked. So I said, "Yes, I do. How do you know him?" Because I always like to ask that question, because people tell you such amazing stories when you ask.
Yes.
So she said, "Well, actually, I don't know him. But 4 days ago, I had a dream," she said. And then she said, I have a daughter who's 9-10 years old. Both her kidneys have failed. And the doctor hasn't given her much time. She's really, really critically ill. I can't even go to the hospital because I have to work. I have no money. I have no medical insurance and no donor. So she's not...
Must have been very hard without insurance in the United States. Is like hell.
Yeah, it's hell, really. I mean, without, you can't even imagine, because nobody will treat you. And she didn't have money for, even if there was a donor, she didn't have any money at all. She was just cleaning bathrooms, So she said, I was praying to my Lord Jesus, obviously a very devout Spanish woman. And I had a dream 4 days ago of this gentleman with a lot of curly hair, wearing an orange dress, she said. She said. And he said, 4 days from now, there'll be an Indian lady. You ask her for... And she hesitated. She said, he said something called booty,
Okay.
I think she meant vibhuti. She said, it looks like white powder. You take it from her and your daughter will be okay. So this lady in a dream asked him, what is your name? I don't know you. So he said, my name is Sai Baba. So she kind of disregarded that whole dream thing because she didn't know who it was. I continued to pray. And then the second day she had the same dream again.
Okay.
Saying the same thing. So then she started to feel a little, what is this going on kind of thing. But she had not seen any Indian woman. Exactly on the fourth day, I happened to walk into the Broadway show. She saw me in the bathroom and she asked me if I was Indian. Then she said, do you have that white powder, booty? So I said, it's called vibhuti. So she said, yes, do you? I usually have, vibhuti packets in my purse. So I was hoping I had one, and I opened my purse. And the first thing I saw was some vibhuti that Swami had materialized for me that past June when I had come here to Puttaparthi in an interview. He had very sweetly folded it himself and given it to me, in a piece of paper. I put it in my purse. I was here for 2 months. I completely forgot to take it out and it was still there. The minute I opened my purse, I saw it. So I said, it must be for this lady. So I gave it to her and said, I hope your daughter feels well, and came away. I told my husband and he said, you should have asked her for a phone number. We could have at least found out how the child was doing and all that. But I didn't. 6 months later, I come to Puttaparthi again in June. This happened in December. Come here in June. Swami calls me for an interview. Soon as I walk in, the first question he says, how was New York? So even before, as usual, it's just so amazing. And I'm about to answer, he says, the girl is okay. No transplant. No kidney transplant.
How did you feel at that time?
I felt so...
Frozen,
thrilled, just so odd, just so thankful that I was able to see this Swami,
again,
that he was in my life, and,
yes.
Just wonderful. And I said, Swami, I didn't ask for the phone number. He said, no, she's all right. I know you gave her the vibhuti. He told the whole story to the other people in the interview room. It's, even though I've seen him now for so long, 46 years of my life, every time is, and the thing that comes across is what you were saying, is that this lady was not a Sai devotee.
Yes.
She was not a Hindu.
Yes.
She was praying to Jesus.
Yes.
Here we sing bhajans, Allah tumo ho, Yesu tumo ho, and you see the answer. It's just wonderful.
We'll be back after a short break. Sairam, welcome back to Radio Sai Global Harmony. We have Mrs. Geetha Ram with us, explaining to us her beautiful and magnificent experiences of Swami. For the next half an hour or 40 minutes, we're going to have her talk to us more of those miracles, what she has seen all these years. And then we will talk many more things. Geetha, you were telling me, I remember you do a lot of retreats in the United States. Could you explain a little more about the retreats? How many people come there, and then which parts of the country you cover? And you also teach Bal Vikas, I heard.
Yes. Yeah. I live in Washington, D.C. So our retreat, our area is known as the Mid-Atlantic region. From Massachusetts on downward till Virginia. I think there are about 4 states, Pennsylvania, New Jersey, New York. And every year we have a retreat on Memorial Day weekend, which is that May 30th, 31st. And you know what is wonderful and amazing is about almost 1,000 people attend this retreat. They all drive 6 to 7 hours. And we have a beautiful place, a campground in the hills.
Yes.
We try to make it as much calm and quiet as Prashanthi Nilayam as we can. So we meet in the Pocono Mountains, actually.
Pocono Mountains. I've been there once.
Have you?
Yes, for the retreat. Yes.
Have you? It's
Yes.
beautiful. It's beautiful. So we usually meet for 3 days. Friday evening, people register, Saturday, Sunday, and then Monday we disperse. And it's a very nice format. We usually try and have really good guest speakers who have had, some contact with Swami, who have really tried to practice Swami's teachings in their life.
And also you begin with the exact routine, like how it is in Puttaparthi, waking up in the morning. And
Yes, we have
bhajans,
Omkaram and Nagar Sankirtan, and then we have bhajan. And then, of course, the speakers. And then in the afternoons, we have like study circle, like workshops, different workshops on both days. And simultaneously, of course, Bal Vikas children, there are almost 400, 500 Bal Vikas children who come. So a lot of the Bal Vikas teachers volunteer to teach the children there too.
Yes.
Though, they miss the whole main program, but they all feel that they're serving Swami by teaching the children. So they keep the children occupied for all of the 3 days. And then again, simultaneously, many of the doctors do a lot of medical service for the devotees there. And then the youth also meet, and they have their own guest speaker and workshops and activities.
Yes.
And we do have an evening cultural program, one by the youth and one by the Bal Vikas children. So it's a wonderful atmosphere of spirituality for 3 days.
Yes.
And we are all sort of reluctant to leave. And again, all the centers take on the responsibilities of all the different jobs. The cooking for all the 3 days are done by 3 or 4 centers.
For the 1,000 people that come?
For the 1,000 people. So it's quite an amazing thing. And then, of course, they set up the altar. The altars are made beautifully. This year, I should say, but I enjoyed it, duplicated the Sai Kulwant hall with the 3 gopurams and the pillars and Swami's chair and the Ganesha.
They literally rebuilt.
They built the pillars with wood, and they made the gopurams. A sculptor from New York made the gopurams from clay.
I see.
Of course, downsized to fit the...
That must be a lot of job in the US too, especially with that kind of craftsmanship to have.
Yeah,
It's
and
beautiful.
many devotees from our center in South Bethesda also help to make, those, you have the swans on the stage where Swami sits.
Yes.
They duplicated the swans in gold, and it was an amazing sight. And even as we drove into the retreat, they had a huge arch, just like the arch that when we enter Prashanthi Nilayam, that said Sri Sathya Sai Retreat 2004, Poconos. It was a wonderful feeling, and a lot of people had put in a lot of effort into it, and it's really wonderful how Swami affects people.
You can imagine the yearning behind
Absolutely.
All this job. To
Absolutely.
be here, to feel this.
Yeah. I was talking to somebody, and he was saying that, once I had in a workshop said, Swami had invited me into the interview room again, and there was a lady called Joy in the interview room. And he had asked her, what is your name? And she said, Joy. And Swami said, what does that mean? And she said, bliss and happiness. He said, how do you spell it again? She said, Joy. So he said, do you know what that means? He said, Jesus first, others next, yourself last. If you practice that, you will always be joy.
Very good.
So
we can never imagine in that angle at all. Swami is
so good with words, so good with words. So I had actually talked about this in a workshop, and this man who had worked on the pillars and many of the people who had worked on the altar were telling me that, that particular word joy that you had explained, we felt that we should put it into practice and make this altar,
Wonderful.
So,
what an inspiration it must have been.
Wonderful inspiration.
And I also heard, Geeta, that you talk to people, you give talks on Swami's literature and Swami's experiences around the country.
I do.
And I heard one of your talks over the tape. Could you also tell our world listeners about the rose experience and also about the snake experience? Please tell them.
Okay, sure. Again, just like the Vibhuti experience that I was telling you that happened to me when I was 8, it kind of changed my course of thought where Swami was concerned. In the same way, I was in the summer course in 1974. And I was in just completed high school at that time, just entered college.
Was 1974 the very first year of the summer course beginning, or the 1973 was the beginning?
1973.
Okay, this is the second year of the summer.
Second summer course. And at that time, students from all over India used to come. Now, of course,
only the campuses.
But at that time, we were all very fortunate, even though we were in different colleges. And, one of the talks that we had heard during the summer course, there were many lecturers in the summer course. We had listened that whole morning about non-violence and ahimsa and all that. And my friend and I, we were sitting in the evening and making notes, on the grass behind what is now Trai Brindavan. They used to have a tent, and that's where our summer course, Swami's discourses were in that tent, in 1974. And we were sitting on the grass and we were writing down.
At the time, there was no Trai Brindavan. That was a different building.
It was the old Brindavan building. Yeah, it was just Brindavan, old building. And behind the building, they used to have a tent where Swami would give his discourses. The classes were in the college auditorium, but the evening discourses were over there. So we were sitting there in the evening making notes. And as we were sitting, sometimes your hands are not still. In the grass, we were pulling the grass out, both of us, just not even realizing it. And then my friend who was with me, her father, in fact, was one of the lecturers in summer course, G.P. Rajaratnam. Swami used to really have him talk to the audience a lot. He was a very great scholar. His daughter. So we were both sitting and she said, look at us. We've been talking about ahimsa all day and here we have pulled out all the grass.
Okay.
So I said, stop being so serious about everything. It's just grass. Big deal kind of thing. That was it. Then the following morning, we had to go there for Nagar Sankirtan and Omkaram at 4 in the morning.
Yes. And Swami also would come out for darshan in the morning.
Yeah, sometimes he would come as a surprise. Sometimes he would come as... In that tent that day, there would be no lights, just the jyoti, the flame for that meditation. And I would sit right at the back, and sometimes maybe even doze off or something. And that particular day, I felt somebody patting me on my shoulder. I turn around and Swami has come from the back and entered the tent. Nobody has realized. Everyone's, chanting 21 ohms or something. He patted me and said, come out.
That was early in the morning.
Early in the morning, 4 o'clock.
4 o'clock, okay.
I thought, Swami must have caught me dozing. He's going to take my badge away or something, send me home. So very nervously I came out. Right next to the tent, there were a whole, lots of rose bushes.
Okay.
A whole lot of them. So he looked at me and said, what did you do yesterday? And I didn't know what I had done. So I said, I don't know, Swami. He said, you and your friend, what did you do? He said. Even at that point, I didn't remember about this grass. I said, I can't remember, Swami, I said. He said, just grass?
Oh, the very same words that you used were quoted.
That I said, because she said, why are you pulling the grass? I said, it's just grass. So he said, just grass? He said. Then I remembered, I said, yes, Swami, we pulled out the grass, I said. Then he said, see, grass is also a living thing. You shouldn't destroy it. And he took me near the rose bush. There were lots of roses and of course tiny little rose buds which was nowhere ready to bloom, just very small. And he just touched it with his finger. And just like a movie or a video, right in front of my eyes, this rosebud started to get bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, like you would see in a movie or something, and opened out into a beautiful rose.
Right in front of your eyes.
Right in front of my eyes. And my jaws just dropped, I was so shocked. And the foolish thing that came out of my mouth was, I can't do that, Swami. As though he asked me. So then Swami said, no, come here. And he took my hand and made me touch another tiny little rosebud. And the same thing happened.
Because he took your hand.
And he took my hand. Then he said, see, if you love something as unconditionally as I love it, even the plants will respond to you. You just have to show it love. Then even the roses, the plants, the animals, everything responds to love.
That is true, because otherwise, just imagine millions of people coming to him. It's only because of the unconditional love.
Love, exactly. Nobody even invites them.
Nobody
Nothing.
invites them. And what is it that makes tears flow down their cheeks just at the sight of Swami? It's just that.
It's just that. It's that love that you can feel it in a very tangible way, and that was what happened. So the rose, beautiful, 2 red roses just bloomed. He said, don't destroy something that you can't make. You cannot make the plants grow. You have no right to do that. So that happened, and then I was so thrilled. That was one other experience in my life that just sort of stayed in my heart. Many, many years later.
What was your friend's reaction?
She was not there when the rose thing happened. I went back and I told her, what happened to me this morning? Because she had seen me get up and leave with Swami. Right. So she thought I was being kicked out of the summer course. Or something. But I said, no, this is what happened. And she was like, I wish I had come with you. I wish I had come with you.
She missed it.
Missed it. And many years later, this happened when I was in high school, finished. I grew up, got married. Several years later, went to the US. We bought our house. And of course, the first summer, we had to cut the grass, mow the lawn.
You were frightened.
And I was arguing with my husband, we can't cut the grass. I got in trouble once,
You'll be penalized.
Penalized by Swami. He said, but I can't let the grass just keep growing, my husband said. So when we came the following year here to Puttaparthi, Swami called us for an interview. And he said, how are you? And the first thing I said, Swami, in America, we have to cut the grass. So Swami very sweetly laughed and said, that's just a haircut, Bangaro. Just a haircut. Of course, when you're young, I needed the lesson of ahimsa, I think.
Yes.
Of course, much later when I was 30 years old, the lessons were different. But he made it a point, that you have to be loving towards everything, not just people who belong to your family or friends. So that was one other amazing experience of his, really, what you call omnipotence, the power in that divinity, that he's able to do anything, create anything.
Everything is in his hands.
Everything is in his hands. That really struck me.
There's another one you were talking, which is evident enough, that Swami is beyond time and space.
Right.
About the snake incident in your house, perhaps.
Yeah, that's a very strange thing. My brother was at home one afternoon. Swami was in Vrindavan, in the old Vrindavan building. And it was in the afternoon. I don't know where my mother was, I don't think. And my brother and I were just there in the house when the phone rang. And my brother came and he answered. It was somebody's phone call. Answered, went away. 2 or 3 times he answered telephone calls. The 4th phone call was a phone call from Vrindavan from Swami.
Okay, to your house.
Can you imagine in those days when Swami used to pick up the phone and call us? He called and my brother picked the phone. My brother's name is Jagdish. Swami only has named him. And he picked up and Swami said, Jagdish, how many times are you going to cross the snake? See, what had happened was a cobra had entered the house. Around our house at that time, there were lots of open space and woods. So somehow the snake had entered the house and it was lying across the doorway.
Okay.
My brother had not noticed, because it was kind of dark, I think, and he had somehow luckily not stepped on it. And he had answered 3 or 4 phone calls without stepping on it. 4th phone call was Swami's, he said, turn around, there is a cobra lying there. If you don't even use your worldly eyes, how will you use your divine eyes?
Oh my God. So
he said, go and call somebody and get rid of the snake. My brother was in college or something at that time. And then, of course, we had to call the gardener and chase the snake out and all that. It was a cobra. But just imagine calling from 26 kilometers from Brindavan to our house to tell my brother that there is a snake lying there, Just amazing
It's really
things,
amazing.
Things that have happened. One other amazing thing like this that happened was, in my grandfather Sheshgiri Rao, he was the person who started the Akhanda Bhajans. In the old days, these first 8 or 9 families who came, they used to come
Who were the other families, if you remember?
Yes. One, my own, personally, our own relatives, there were about 7 or 8 families. Sheshgiri Rao's daughter's family, son's family, and then my father and his brothers and sisters, them. And apart from them, also the Madras people, the Kuppam people,
Kuppam
they
family.
all used to come. We all know of them. So they used to come and see Swami and go back home. They used to feel so bad and miss Swami that my relatives, the 8 families that first came, decided to do bhajan every Thursday in Bangalore.
Okay.
They said, let's bring that atmosphere here. They started to do it in 1944. So for 1 year, they did it. And at the end of 1 year, they said, let us celebrate it as a 24-hour bhajan.
Okay.
Because we have completed 1 year. So they wrote to Swami taking his permission to do. So Swami said, no, you do it for 24 hours, but I will myself come to the Akhanda Bhajan to light the lamp.
Okay.
These people were all middle class families. They were like, if Swami comes, how will we take care of him? Our houses are small, this and that. So they wrote back to Swami saying, Swami, how will you stay in our houses? A small house. Swami said, am I coming into your house or into your hridayam, into your heart? It doesn't matter the size of the house.
Beautiful.
So in 1945, he started to come every year to my father's house, stayed there for 3 days, Wednesday, Thursday and Friday, completed Akhand Bhajan and come back to Puttaparthi. So during those years from 45 to 75, the Akhand Bhajan was conducted by my family, these 8 families.
In Bangalore.
In Bangalore. Then Swami made it into a global bhajan. He said, now you guys have done it for 25 years. Let the whole world enjoy the Namasmaran.
Yes.
So it was converted into global Akhand Bhajan after that. So one of the Akhand Bhajans, he came to our house. He was staying with us. And one young man came and said, look, at that time, of course, we would not allow everybody to come and go because Swami was staying.
Yes.
One young man came to my father the day before the Akhand Bhajan. He knew that Swami would be coming and said he had leukoderma patches all over his body. It was just 25, 26. Said, I want to get married, settle down. With this, it is a problem. Can you please arrange for me to meet Swami?
So it's an unknown person?
No, he was a devotee, but never had an opportunity to talk to Swami.
No, he is known to your family?
Yeah, he was known to our family, meaning he used to come to the bhajans just as an acquaintance. He used to sing very well.
Okay.
So then my father said, I cannot tell Swami whom to give interview and all that. But if you have devotion, you come and attend the Akhanda Bhajan. If Swami's will is there, he will talk to you.
Okay.
So the boy went, he was a very good singer. So one evening, Thursday morning, we used to start Akhand Bhajan, Thursday through Friday. Thursday, Swami finished evening darshan, came back home, and it started to rain, And he sent my mother, who used to be in the house, and say, you go and attend some of the bhajan. Dinner is over now, I will rest, you go. So my father, Swami, myself, few others are in the house. Suddenly at 9 o'clock in the night, Swami says, Padmanabh, you bring the car, I want to go back to the hall, where the Akhand Bhajan is going on. My father said, Swami, you have just come back, why don't you take a rest? It's raining, it was pouring, And Swami said, no, immediately bring the car. He told me, you also come. I was a small girl. I used to go wherever Swami used to go in the car, I was very fortunate. So we went back. Swami entered through the men's side. This gentleman, this young man, didn't know that Swami was going to come. It was 9:30 at night.
Yes.
He has closed his eyes and he's singing this bhajan, Darsha Dikao Mere Sai Nandalala. Swami walks in, stands in front of him. This boy has his eyes closed. He's singing with so much devotion, doesn't even know that Swami is standing there.
The boy with the leukoderma.
With the leukoderma, white patches.
Yeah.
The bhajan is over, he opens his eyes. He was singing beautifully. Opens his eyes, Swami standing there, swaying to the bhajan. Smiles at him, bends down, touches his head, and in front of all our eyes, not a single leukoderma patch on his body, just disappeared.
Just like that?
Just like that. Gone. He was as normal as any one of us.
Nothing surprising, really.
Exactly.
What Swami can do, it's nothing surprising.
Amazing. But again, in the case of this young man, just like my aunt, he was sitting in the house. Out of the blue, he said, bring the car, let's go. So that boy's devotion and prayer must have pulled him,
Yes.
So he just got up, and in fact, my father said, Swami, you've just come back, you've just had dinner, why don't you rest a while? We'll go back in the morning. My father, being older than Swami, always little protective of Swami in some ways, because he had seen him since he was a boy of 21. And then Swami said, no, bring the car. And see, this boy's devotion again brought him perfectly fine. The boy was all right, got back into the car and drove back home as though it was the most ordinary thing.
Yes, it is. It is for him.
For him it is, exactly. But he...
And there's another incident you were telling, Geeta. There was an old lady, Konama, as famously known as Konamava.
Right.
Who used to boil water for Swami.
Yeah.
Would you tell something about it?
I would love to. Because that again was... with some of these incidents, Swami's pure love, just touches your heart so much. And that was also an amazing thing. Of course, Swami's miracles and incidents, you can go on endlessly for days. But some really touch your heart. There was this old lady, Konamava, as we all used to call her. He used to boil Swami's water in those days, for his bath and all that. She was a very poor lady.
She used to stay somewhere in the east.
Yes, she used to have a little room.
There was only one strip of houses, I believe. My grandmother always used to...
You don't remember. You're too young.
I was not even born. I was not born at that time. But
yeah, the South Prashanti now, that huge building.
Yes.
There used to be, I think, 8 or 9 rooms. One of the rooms used to be my grandfather's, one Kasturi's, few other people, 8 rooms. Then East Prashanti, where you are now, there used to be another small 2 or 3 rooms, and what we used to have, the generator room.
It is still there, People don't know it, but it is still there.
Oh, is it?
Behind the big East block, there are few rooms behind it.
Oh.
Those are the original small rooms. There was another lady, Sushila Mava, Subhamma.
Who is in Kerala. Yes, I know all of them.
All of them used to live there at the back.
Exactly.
They are the original owners of those rooms. Blocks.
Exactly.
Yes.
And there used to be a generator there also.
It is still there. I think that is now more, it's a grown-up generator or something.
Yeah. Exactly. So that generator used to give light to Swami's Prashanti building. We all used to have little lanterns in our room, and we used to cook with that one lantern. I mean, those were golden days. Swami would suddenly come into our rooms any time of the day. There was no walk in and say, what are you all cooking today? And sit with everybody and have dinner. I remember even as a child that, in those days they would put morsels of food in your hand and you would eat it so that you didn't have to wash the dishes because it was so hard to get water.
Yes.
And Swami would join us for that and put his hand and eat with the children sitting in a circle.
That reminds me of, even you go even earlier days. My grandmother used to tell us, Parvatamagar, that Swami would call all these villagers. I mean, they would come on their own. People with diseases, people poor, people beggars. Swami would mix everybody's food that was brought to him and make them into balls, serve them. People the lepers would become all right. The people with tuberculosis got all right. Things like that. I've heard a lot about those days.
I know,
miraculous
days. I remember even as a child, my grandmother would have a little lantern and all the children would sit around it and she would mix the rice and finish off dinner basically by giving us balls of food. And many times Swami would come from the back, those steps and come and sit down and says, what special? See, and he would tease her. You say, for your grandchildren, you have cooked more special food than for me. Because in those days, they would all cook for Swami. And that generator used to be there and really wonderful days. So this Konamava used to boil the water for Swami. And one particular weekend, my family, my dad, my mother, my brother and I, we had just come to spend like Friday, Saturday, Sunday here. We used to come every month and all our vacations, holidays, everything was only Puttaparthi for us. Swami used to be with us so much. And we came and that Saturday evening, Swami suddenly around in the afternoon, 1 o'clock or something, called my father. I mean, those were the days when he would stand on that balcony and these 8 rooms would be there. From there, he would call out,
yes.
Padmanabh, Padmanabh.
Yes.
And
there was no roof at that time. This Kulwant Hall roof, sand.
No, Kulwant Hall roof.
No trees either, no?
Yeah, no, the eucalyptus trees were all ones we had planted as children.
Okay.
We would water it. And then that East Prashanti, some parts of it, there would be lots of jasmine plants.
Yes.
So in the evening, we would stand in a line and
there is
pass
still,
the
I
water.
think, there is still a strip of garden.
Oh.
It's still remaining there. At the back of this huge building, east, there is a garden still. That's the original garden. You must see it. Then you'll remember.
Yeah.
People can see it. There's still the jasmine plants are there. And they still use those flowers even till today for making garlands for mandir inside.
Oh, see, I didn't because now they've built so much and I never have a chance to go there. See, the well, we used to pass the water from the well to the jasmine plants and water it.
The well which is opposite on the right side of Ganesh Mandir.
Exactly.
I think as you enter into the mandir, left side of
Left side is
that
the
has
well.
been closed down now,
Yeah,
right?
it's closed.
There was a huge well, I believe.
There was a huge well. We used to get the water from there for the cooking and for watering and all. So she used to bring this old lady, boil the water. So Swami used to stand in the balcony and call out, to this and say, come here. Come. Then if he saw us kids making a lot of noise, he's saying, why are you all running around in the hot sun and all that. So he called and said, this Konamma is not feeling well.
Mm-hmm.
And there was no hospital, proper surgeon or anybody at that time here, So the small Prashanti hospital was there, but, just had they could meet basic needs.
Yeah, I think headed by Dr. Jayalakshmi at that time. She had just come from London. A graduate from London.
Fun lady. So so he said, you have to take her to Bangalore. So you take her immediately, he told my father, because he had brought a car. Then, Swami's infinite mercy and love, he comes down 15 minutes later and says, no, she may not survive because her appendix has burst. Can you imagine?
It's burst appendix and she's still alive.
She's still alive. So he said, I will come with you to Bangalore. Let Kamlamma and Jagdish go in the bus. That is my mother and my brother. Geeta is still small, so she'll let her come in the car. So Konamava and myself, we are sitting in the back seat. Swami and my father in the front seat. My father had a small standard Super 10 car, And we had to drive through this Penakonda and all those places. You have to go through those tributaries, the water, no rocks, no road, the car going up and down. And this poor lady is in so much pain. Swami would materialize every half an hour vibhuti for her and say, don't worry, Konamma, we are almost there. For 4 hours, we have driven to Bangalore. By the time we reached Bangalore, it was about 7:30 in the night. We drive to Dr. Kalappa's nursing home in Double Road in Bangalore. I don't know how familiar.
I'm not sure about that.
Okay.
But is it still a Double Road now? Or?
It is still Double Road. Okay. But I don't know if the nursing home is still there. Dr. Kalappa was a Kurgi doctor who used to come to Swami. So we drive there. His house was behind the nursing home.
Okay.
So Swami, we all go and knock the door. Imagine his surprise. He opens the door and there is Swami standing at his doorstep. And he says, I have brought Konamma from Puttaparthi. She needs surgery. Mm-hmm. And he is frantically trying to get hold of an anesthesiologist to do the surgery. Couldn't locate his anesthesiologist. So he says, Swami, I have to. And Swami is saying, hurry. So he says, no anesthesiologist. So Swami says, don't worry. Put her in the OT, They carry her in the stretcher. Swami puts vibhuti on her forehead and says, that is anesthesia. Now go and do the surgery.
As though otherwise he had to really come all the way to the hospital.
Exactly, just to teach us.
And also the doctor.
And then the surgery went on for an hour and a half. Then this man comes out with his mask and all that. And can you believe, Chetna, Swami, my father and I can never forget this. We are sitting on one of these hard hospital benches waiting for the surgery to be finished.
With Swami. Like anybody
else. And he so sweetly waits to make sure that this lady is all right.
The lady who just boiled water for him.
Who has no money, no family, nothing. Just a village woman, And then the doctor said, she's all right, Swami. She's resting now. By tomorrow morning, she should feel a lot better. Then Swami tells my father, you call Rama Brahmam in Vrindavan I'll go back. And at 10 o'clock in the night, my father and I, we take him to Vrindavan, drop him off, make sure, there's...
Rama Brahmam Tata again is this old man from Vrindavan who is to take care of Swami's residence.
Swami's residence.
The property things there.
Yes. Quite a strict old man.
I remember we were very little those days during summer course times. We would stay in that building. And Swami would stay upstairs.
Upstairs, yes.
I recall some of the women like Kuppam Susilama with us. And the Swami, family members were there.
Yes.
And a couple of other women, sometimes they would stay. Lakshmi Parvatamagar.
Yes.
And also Mrs. J. Lakshmi Gopinath also used to stay at that time.
Right.
So this old man, Rama Brahmangaru, we always feared him.
Scared of him, yes.
Always.
Everybody did. I remember once somebody told Swami, that Swami, we are very scared of Rama Brahmam. So Swami jokingly said, I am also very scared of him. But anyway, so we went
very fond of Swami. Though.
Very fond, very devoted. And Swami used to be fond of him too.
So you went and told him?
Told him that Swami has arrived. We called him actually from Bangalore, that we are on our way. We came back and that poor man was in a tizzy because suddenly out of the blue Swami has arrived at 10 o'clock at night, dropped him off and all that. So, that really touched my heart, that he should have taken the trouble of bringing her to Bangalore, waiting till her surgery is over. Just some ordinary lady. Just amazing. Swami's love is unbelievable.
Geeta, these are all really unbelievable, and those times would never come back to us.
Isn't that sad?
Yes, it is very sad. And this is all his plan.
Yeah.
We are more aware of it as we grow more, I guess.
That's true.
And we have seen a lot of miracles through people and also our personal experiences. And I always like to ask this question to anybody that comes here. We see Swami at different phases, in different levels. Ultimately, what Swami is there's a quote in Sanskrit, Anuraniyan Mahato Mahiyan. He's the tiniest of all the tiny things, smaller than the smallest, bigger than the biggest. He is the supreme consciousness. And how do you look at it? How do you perceive this as supreme consciousness? Swami as the supreme consciousness.
I suppose each one of us has to grow within ourselves also. For me, Swami has been a personal being whom we've loved since the day we were born. And then as I got older, I think, and I saw the wonderful things that Swami is doing that affects so many lives, not one or two, but thousands of people, and how it transforms their lives into something wonderful. Just people who have not even seen him have transformed their lives. There was a woman I met at a Buddhist monastery at one of the retreats. She was a nurse and she has never seen Swami, and she just happened to read one of his books. And then there was a group coming to Puttaparthi and she came, and in the interview room, Swami never talked to her in that group. But just as she was going out, he said, "Are you a nurse?" And she said, "Yes." He said, "Do you make a lot of money?" He joked. She said, "Yes." And Swami said, "For what?" And that was the end of the interview. He opened the door and sent them all out. It was finished. But that kept working in her head. And one day while she was driving in Arizona, she saw a Native American settlement, like a reservation where they had no medical facilities. And there was a husband and wife couple. The wife was in labor and they had no hospital to go to, and they were trying to flag down cars that were driving by. And it so happened that this nurse drove by. She was a nurse. She took them back into the reservation and delivered the baby for them. And then she looked around and she saw all these people who, in a country like America, with no proper medical facilities, nothing. And she remembered what Swami had said. "Are you a nurse? Are you making money? And for what?" So she quit her job as a nurse in the hospital. She was and started working with these Native Americans to bring the medical facilities there.
Beautiful.
And I met her in a retreat. And she was telling me that that's what it is. For what? What is the use of all this knowledge if I can't serve Swami through his beings, So that's what to me is cosmic consciousness, that he can transform a woman 10,000 miles away. To do something so wonderful that you would never have thought of otherwise.
And you were also telling about your visit to the ATM machine. How, Swami would have...
Yes, that is again Swami omniscient, omnipotent, omnipresent. What can I say?
Those are the only words we have to describe.
That's all. And
we are limited.
We are very limited. We are very limited. And sometimes those are just dictionary words. We don't really even know what it means in real life.
It's just an experience. Beyond all this, word experience, I think, fits in the best.
Yeah, I mean, this was for Swami's 75th birthday, about 4 years ago, in year 2000. I was the SSC coordinator for our center, and we had planned a very beautiful, big program for Swami's birthday. We have 100 Balavikas children in our one center.
That's amazing.
It's really great. We have about 250 people who attend bhajans every Sunday in a school. And we have 14 Balavikas teachers who work very hard. So I was the coordinator at that time, and we planned a big program. And I went that evening because the following day, November 23rd, was Swami's birthday, and we had the program. So on 22nd, I was very tired with rehearsals and all that, went to the bank, to the ATM machine to draw some money. It was about 5:30 in the evening, It's a little dark being November. And I drew some money and I put it in the purse on my seat. I had to open my door because I couldn't reach the ATM machine. And before I could close the door, a man
This is a drive-through ATM?
Drive-through.
Okay.
And in fact, there was another car waiting behind me so that I could finish and he could use the ATM. But a man saw that my driver's side door was open, because I hadn't been able to reach the machine. He ran from behind the car, opened my back door, got into the car, pulled me backwards with his left hand, and with his right hand he held a really big steak knife.
Like in the movies?
Like in the movies,
okay.
And held it to my throat, just completely pressed to my throat, and just kept telling me, drive, 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 And I couldn't drive because the door was open, my neck was pulled back. So I said, look, if it's the money you want, I'll give it to you, because the money was still in my hand. So I said, no, drive, drive. Don't you hear me? Drive. So I said, well, I have to close the door. So he sort of let go of my neck a little bit, and I closed the door. And just as we were about to drive, 2 police cars came and blocked the exit. And 6 police officers got out and started to walk towards the car, but stopped because they saw the knife. So I knew these guys are scared, they have to make a decision what to do. So I could see him in my rear view mirror. So I said, look, I mean, there are police cars. We could hear police sirens everywhere, So I said, lots of police are coming. Why don't you just give yourself up? Because if you kill me, I won't feel anything, but you'll have to face the consequence.
Yes.
Why don't you give yourself up, And I don't know. It's only Swami who could have even given me the words, the calmness. I mean, it was nothing to do with me, honestly.
I would have been dead.
If
I were you, I would have been dead by the look of that steak knife.
This big knife. And then there was a dead silence for a few minutes. And then he said, how come you're not scared? So I said, what can I do? It's not in my control. Whatever happens will happen. But why don't you give yourself up? Because you are going to have to face the consequence. They'll put you behind bars for several years. I said happily, I have grown children, my responsibilities are over. But you're going to have to face jail time. There was again silence, and then suddenly out of the blue, the man says, okay. And he just opens the car door and gets out and starts walking towards the police with his hands up in the air,
Without harming you even a little bit?
No harm. And then the police guys all caught him and put him in the car. Then they came and drove me out of the ATM, the drive-through. And they sort of joked and said, my goodness, what did you say to him, that you could kill? And I said, I really honestly don't know. Now, through this whole process, I had my hand on Swami's picture. I had a little sticker in my car.
Okay.
And I'd put my thumb on Swami's picture. That's all I had been doing. And in my head, I was thinking, my goodness, if after so many years of being with Swami, 43 years of my life, if I don't believe that Swami is with me at this time, then I wasted Swami's time and my time. Both our time, And then I was thinking, Swami discourse after discourse says, this body is like an old shirt. You should not cry when you discard it. It will come and go. You don't cry when you discard an old shirt. So I said, that's what it is. If it's my time to go, it's my time to go. I shouldn't worry about it. Swami will take care of everything. So anyway, I went to the police station, did whatever that needed to be done, with all that, and then came home. And on that day, in Puttaparthi, my parents were here. Swami has come to my mother in the darshan line and said, how is Geeta? So my mother said, Swami, I came on the 8th itself. She's all right. So Swami said, oh, is she really all right? So then my mother got little panicky. Then Swami said, don't worry. Now she's okay, he said. And he went away. Then few days later, he came to Bangalore, and I had not yet talked to my parents because they were here. But Swami narrated the whole story, how I had put my hand on the picture, my thumb. He told the college boys in Bangalore, along with the professors and the vice chancellor and everyone, and said she had put her thumb on my picture and this fellow attacked her. And then he even said jokingly, look at her. She even was thinking in her mind, if at this time I don't believe that Swami is there, I wasted Swami's time and my time. And he also said that she says her body is like an old shirt, but she's a woman. Why didn't she say her body is like an old sari? But
he's watching us all the time.
And he knows our deepest thoughts.
Yes.
Because I had not even told my husband what I had been thinking that day in the car.
Yes.
That's what he means when he says, I'm in your heart,
Yes.
He knows our thoughts, he knows our words. Which is why we can change our lives. Because if Swami knows everything we are doing,
yes,
then the quality of our life also changes.
Of course.
We have to practice what he says.
Everything was so nice, Geeta. You've been really good with our listeners.
Thank you.
And thank you for coming to our studios.
Thank you.
And
Welcome.
you've given us, it's really, we feel enriched with all these experiences. Thank you so much.
Sai Ram.
Sai Ram.
Sai Ram.